Okay, guys, welcome to lesson 2.2, the midpoint formula. Lesson 2.1 was the distance formula, and these are two different formulas. The distance of something is the length of something, whereas the midpoint formula will tell you where the center of a segment is located on the coordinate plane. So let's look at the objective, which is for students to derive and apply the midpoint formula to find the midpoint of a segment in the coordinate plane, like I just said, and to determine an endpoint for a segment given another endpoint and the midpoint, okay? So this investigation is meant for you to do on your own, all right? So this whole section you'll do by yourself. I will do the first one with you, just to kind of help you figure out how to do the rest of it. So the investigation is asking you, given the midpoint, the endpoints of a segment, these are your endpoints, find the midpoint. And I'm not going to use a ruler except to connect the endpoints to each other. And then you're going to write the coordinates here. I'm going to do this one, okay? So let's do that together. So A is 2, 5, so 2 on the x-axis, 1, 2, and I like to label this as the negative part, and that's the negative part. So we have a positive x, positive y section, negative x, negative y section. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is A. And then negative 6, negative 1 is going to be somewhere in here because this is they're both negative, so this is the 2 negative section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and negative 1 down here. And that's B. I'm going to use my ruler to connect those up and to create a segment. And there you go. So now I need to figure out, well, what is the middle of the segment? So the midpoint formula is going to help you with that. But let's try to figure it out. Well, I need to see what is the center of this line. Now, the only place this line doesn't fall in between the boxes, and I'm just guessing here, is right here. So I am going to say that this is the midpoint because I have a feeling my midpoint is going to be, the coordinates are going to be whole numbers. Now this is a guess. It's an investigation. Whatever your thoughts are as you're doing it are your thoughts. But that was my thinking in doing this. You could use the ruler and measure things and divide and all of that. And in fact, if that's what you want to do, fine. Like now if we use the ruler, this is 1, 1.5. Right? So half of 1.5 is going to give us half of 1.5. 2 divided by 1.5 is 0.75, 3/4. So then that would be right here, right? 3/4. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So here, this here is, like I said, 1.5, right? So there's a 1 here, and then that's half. And then, so 1.5 divided by 2 is 0.75. Like if you have $1.50, half of $1.50 is 75 cents. And so 3/4, 0.75 is the same as 3/4. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and we are accurate, okay? So that means that my midpoint is -2, 2. And so you're going to pause the video, plot these points, identify what the midpoint is based on, you can use a ruler, you can do what I did and find the, wherever the point falls directly on a box rather than in between boxes. Yeah, and then once you do that, you're going to answer the 2 questions. Okay, so the 2 questions underneath ask to look back at what you did and what do you notice about the x-coordinates of the midpoint compared to the x-coordinates of the endpoint. and the same with the y. So think about if there's a pattern that you see. Pause, answer those questions. Make sure you do not bring them in blank tomorrow because you will be penalized to the tune of about 15 points. Don't leave any blanks, answer the question. All right, so once you're back, let's take a look at the midpoint formula and what it is. So the midpoint formula is given by this, okay? And so this tells us that the x-coordinate of your midpoint is an average or the mean of your first endpoint and your second endpoint. And so when we say average, it means we add up two things and divide them by the amount of things or the number of things in the set. The two endpoints divided by 2 will give you the x-coordinate of the midpoint, your x's, okay? So take your x-coordinate of your endpoint, x-coordinate of your other endpoint, add those, divide by 2, you'll get the x-coordinate of your midpoint. Same with the y's. Take the y-coordinate of your midpoint, the other y-coordinate of your midpoint, divide by 2, and you will get the y-coordinate of your midpoint. Endpoints, y endpoints, add them up, divide them by 2, get the midpoint for y. And so when you put it all together to get the midpoint and both your x and your y coordinates, you just add up your x coordinates of your endpoints, divide by 2, add up the y coordinates of your endpoints, divide by 2, and you'll get your x and y coordinates for your midpoint. Okay? Moving on. Okay. So here is your try it out. And for this try it out, you're being asked for endpoints, right? You're being asked for, to find the midpoint. Sorry, I'm rushing ahead. So I want you to go ahead, do this, try it out. You given the endpoints, right? Find the midpoint. It's in the second one where you're given the midpoint and you need to find the endpoint. So I'm going to help you here with the setup, okay? So we know that the way we get the x-coordinate of our midpoint is to add up this and that, right? And the same thing. But in this case, we are given the midpoint. Okay, so we are given our m of x, we're given our m of y. Here, that's going to be our x sub 1, y sub 1. So we have, think of it this way. We have a segment, we're told that this is the middle of a segment, and the coordinates are -2, 1. Then we have the other piece of the segment, which is -5, 7. This is just a sketch. So we need to know, or let's put a, right? We need to know what is the other half? What are the coordinates of the other half? Those are question marks. What are the coordinates of the other half? Okay? So we need to figure that out. The way we do that is we substitute. So we're going to substitute in our midpoint of x, or our x-coordinate for our midpoint, which we're given. So we're going to take that, and we're going to put a -2 here. We have our x sub 1, and really what we're solving for is our x sub 2. Again, for this, we have our 1. We're going to substitute that in. We're given our y sub 1. Now we just need to figure out what's our y sub 2. And so essentially this is an equation that you have to solve. Okay, so what you are going to be doing is solving this equation. You're going to have a question like this on your warm-up tomorrow or for the turn and talk. So really think about how to answer this question, leave your response here and I'll be checking for it tomorrow. Have a good night.